Teen girl hears scratching in trunk, quickly calls 911 when she sees this. The world is filled with unsung heroes and heroines who selflessly aid and protect others each day, expecting nothing in return. At the supermarket, at the bus stop, while crossing the street, there are people you may not know who unknowingly brighten your day. These heroes, often unaware of the impact of their actions, contribute to making the world a better place and offer hope to those who had nearly lost it. Kayla Rose was a 17-year-old girl living in Irvington, New Jersey with her parents Gilbert and Sophie Rose. The teenager led a very quiet and happy life, and like any other girl her age, she was finishing high school and preparing to enter Ohio University, where she wanted to pursue a career in law. Rose had a regular routine each morning that she loved to stick to. She never left anything undone and loved to plan everything she had to do throughout the week. She never left anything to chance, not even the weather. She monitored the weather through a sophisticated app on her cell phone, thus reducing to the maximum the chances of ending up soaked because she hadn't packed an umbrella in her backpack when she left home. So we could say that at her young age, young Kayla Rose was a lover of control and planning, something that had led her to excel in many aspects of her life, especially in her studies, being the best in her class since she was 8 years old and the captain of the chess and debate team of her high school. All teachers adored her since she was not only an excellent student who managed to excel in all subjects, she was also an excellent person who had earned the respect and affection of everyone who knew her. You should try to let life surprise you. Forget about your planners and apps that remind you of everything you have to do every day and just live. Go out there and let the world surprise you. Let fate do its job for once. Some things can't be planned, my friend. Her best friend Cassie, whom she'd known since kindergarten, told her on numerous occasions, "I don't like surprises, you know that. When we plan our lives, our chances of having a good day increase dramatically. We're more productive and therefore we're happier. What's wrong with that? You should try using a planner. You're too messy, Cassie. Believe me, organization's the key to success and happiness. Improvisation's the opposite," she replied every time. Kayla spoke like a true diplomat, and it was impossible to beat her in an argument, so her friend usually kept quiet and changed the subject as soon as possible. As we've explained, Rose followed a very specific routine every day and that never varied. She got up at 6 in the morning to go to school, had breakfast, got dressed, combed her hair, brushed her teeth, and walked her dog Milkshake, a beautiful 4-year-old German Shepherd who never left her side. To get to school on time, Kayla had to take Milkshake for a walk at 7 a.m., a walk that was usually no more than 20 minutes long and which she took through the streets closest to her house. She would never stray more than a block away as that would jeopardize her strict punctuality. However, there was one day when all her plans would go unfulfilled, and the girl who hates surprises found herself with something that no app could ever plan for. It all happened on a random Wednesday that Kayla started out like any other, following to the letter what her schedule indicated. At 7 a.m., she put Milkshake on a leash and took him for a walk around the neighborhood. Everything was quiet. At that hour, the neighborhood was practically empty. Kayla was walking down Lindsley Street on her way home when suddenly she heard a strange sound coming from a black Nissan Altima parked on the side of the road. At first, Kayla thought she had imagined it and continued walking, but only a second later she heard the sound again. This time the sound was louder, and it was clear that it was coming from the black car. The teenager began to get nervous and approached it. Slowly, Kayla moved closer to the car, and as she did so, she could hear the sound more clearly. It was coming from the trunk, and it sounded to her like a human voice. There was someone trapped in that trunk. It was 7 o'clock in the morning, and she was in the middle of the street all alone. It was very risky, and although she was very scared, the young woman finally approached the trunk and whispered, "Hello, can you hear me?" Immediately after, she heard a voice coming out of the trunk that said, "Hey, help me, please help me." Her heart was beating very fast and she could feel her cheeks burning. Kayla knew she had to do something and that she had to act as fast as she could. She never experienced anything similar, but she had read hundreds of detective novels in which the protagonist had to solve a solution like this. "I have to ask for help. I have to get someone to help me before the person who's kidnapped him returns," the young woman said to herself as she tried to gather her thoughts and act quickly to save the person locked in the trunk. When Kayla realized there was someone locked in the trunk and that both their lives were in danger, she ran out to a nearby house to call for help. "Ma'am, I need you to call the police right away. There's a person locked in that car," she said, pointing to the black Nissan at the curb in front of the house. "Please call and let them know that there's a kidnapper and that there's a good chance he'll be back." The young woman spoke very fast and was breathing heavily. The neighbor, a woman in her 70s whom Kayla had known since she was a little girl, called 911 immediately, explaining everything the young woman had told her. Rose then rushed home to find her mother, who had not yet left for work, to tell her everything that happened. A few minutes later, when Kayla and her mother returned to the scene, the fire department and police had already arrived. The neighbor who called them was also there and indicated she was the young woman who had discovered the whole thing and raised the alarm. The police asked Kayla to stay in case they needed to ask her any questions about the case. "You've been very brave, young lady. Your mother can be very proud of you. Others in your place would have run away and would have preferred others to take the risk, but you did the right thing and probably saved a life. Not everyone's capable of doing something like that, especially at such a young age. Not everyone is capable of doing something like that, especially at such a young age." The police inspector in charge of the investigation congratulated her. Kayla decided to stand by while the fireman opened the trunk from the car. She knew there was someone inside and she was aware that it was quite possible that the person being held hostage was badly injured, but she was stunned when the trunk was open and she discovered the truth. The man inside the trunk was in his mid-20s. He was not much older than she was. His wrists were bound with ropes and he was covered in scratches and bruises all over his body. Kayla was a little traumatized when she saw that young man inside the trunk. She couldn't help but think that if she'd gone downstairs earlier to walk the dog, the person inside that injured trunk could have been her. When the paramedics arrived and saw the condition of the man in the trunk, they rushed him to emergency care. They carefully pulled him out and put him in the ambulance, where they gave him initial treatment of the most serious injuries and warmed him up. Afterwards, before leaving for the hospital, the paramedic team leader asked who had found the man, and the police pointed to Kayla. The paramedic told her that if she hadn't come when she did, the man could have died, and thanked her for her bravery and speed. If you hadn't acted as quickly as you did, this man could have died from hypothermia. Considering the low temperatures we're having and the severity of his injuries, his body would have not resisted much longer and he could have suffered an irreparable cardiac arrest, the paramedic explained seriously to Kayla. The young woman still did not seem to assimilate what had just happened and just nodded silently. According to authorities, the man's car had been carjacked the night before around 7:30 p.m. while he was driving on AV Street in Hillside, which borders Irvington. As they were able to deduce, when the man stopped at a traffic light, two armed men abruptly got into his car and at gunpoint made him drive them to several ATMs to force him to withdraw all his money. When the man had the money they needed, they put the man in the trunk and left him there. It was a horrible ordeal for the victim. It was a miracle that he was left alive. The man was taken to the nearest hospital by ambulance and remained there for 2 days after being examined and treated by emergency doctors. Fortunately, his injuries were non-life-threatening, and the doctors told him the scratches and bruises would heal in a couple of weeks with complete rest. Unfortunately, the emotional wounds that traumatic event caused him would take much longer to heal, and he would need professional psychological care to fully recover. When local news channels got wind of what happened, they reported the story, making young Kayla's great act of heroism the most prominent news story in recent weeks. The news anchor called Rose a heroine and explained that without the young teen's intervention, the man trapped in the trunk would not have survived. All the news outlets agreed with that version of the story and were quick to praise the girl's brave act of heroism. Most girls as young as Kayla Rose would not know what to do in such a situation. Miss Rose, who was only 17 years old, knew how to keep a cool head and quickly got the man the help he needed. The police have not said whether they've caught the men who stole his car. We can only hope that they do, because it is clear that these are dangerous people. We can only be thankful for the existence of such brave and generous citizens and hope that the authorities catch these evil men as soon as possible, said one of the anchors during the evening news that same day. However, Kayla didn't want to take any credit for it and chose to ignore any chance of gaining fame from what had happened. For her, it was really traumatic and she needed to get back to her usual rhythm of life as soon as possible. For Kayla, who was a person who loved to be in control of everything that happened in her life, what happened that morning was too much. Kayla felt that fate was mocking her for saying that those who plan everything are never surprised, and that what she had experienced was fate's way of showing her that there is always room for improvisation in life. A reminder that Kayla Rose, as well as all of us, should never forget, because if we don't let fate surprise us, nothing will. Did you like this touching and surprising story? If so, we invite you to leave us a comment expressing your opinion. If you want to continue enjoying inspiring stories like this one, subscribe to our channel or check out the other videos shown at the bottom of the screen. Thank you for your cooperation.